But people are watching Syria, and they're seeing that without Iran, this murderous regime would not still be in power. And they're wondering, where was the defensive nature of your intervention on behalf of Bashar Assad in Syria?
Well, I think if they want to look at regional influence, they need to look at the wrong choices that they have made.
But specifically, I need to ask about this.
Yes,
because
I will.
I'm not asking about them, I'm asking about Iran.
Yes, I will ask.
Why come in on the side of the Middle East Milosevic?
It's your impression, but
Mr. Foreign Minister, there are 500,000 people dead, there are 12 million refugees, there's torture, there's mass hanging. It's not my impression, those are the facts.
No, those are not the facts, because you had a group in Syria that was armed and equipped and financed by outside forces. Mistakes were made in the beginning, but the worst mistake of all was to arm a group of terrorists who are not only a threat to Syria, but a threat globally. Mistakes were made in Syria, as in the past mistakes had been made. The same people who armed Daesh, armed the terrorist groups, were the same people who armed Saddam Hussein, were the same people who created and armed Al-Qaeda. We should not continue to repeat history and then blame people who were on the right side. Do not forget that this is a pattern of behavior that has existed for over 38 years, that a group of countries, which the United States calls allies, plus the United States itself, and here I'm referring to President Trump himself during his campaign, saying that Daesh is a creation, ISIS is a creation of the United States government. What is the problem is wrong choices that have been made throughout history. In supporting Saddam Hussein for 8 years, the United States, the rest of the world, and its Arab allies supported Saddam Hussein. Look where he took them. They supported ISIS, they created ISIS, they armed ISIS without their arms.
They were actually supporting the moderates, but let's get to that in a second.
No. They say they were supporting the moderates, but the fighting force on the ground in Syria and in Iraq are two very clear organizations, Daesh and Al-Nusra.
Sir, you
both
know,
of them are recognized by the Security Council, not by me or any other outside power, but by the United Nations Security Council, in which the United States is a permanent member, as terrorist organizations. These are the fighting forces on the ground.
We
need to deal with that. But let me.
But this is very important, actually, because it was a mostly popular uprising in 2011, which then there were moderates at the beginning, and without Iran's intervention in 2012, Bashar Assad would not have regained the territory that he did. You defend very passionately the way the world sat by and watched Saddam Hussein gas Iran during the Iran-Iraq war with no accountability. And yet you're supporting Bashar Assad, who's been gassing his own people with chemical weapons, with chlorine gas and barrel bombs. It's really hard to understand why you would take that position.
No, we never support the use of chemical weapons because we were victims of chemical weapons.
Right, but they're using it and you're supporting them.
Hold on. We made a very clear stand against the use of chemical weapons. We were instrumental in getting the international agreement on the removal of chemical weapons from Syria. Unfortunately, that international agreement lacks a very serious element, and that is to remove chemical weapons from the stockpiles of ISIS and Al-Nusra, who have now been confirmed, even by the United States, as having used chemical weapons against Syrians. So we are dealing with a very difficult situation. Unfortunately, we have found ourselves in a situation where the choice was to allow Daesh and Nusra to gain, instead of being organizations, to be a state, or to be two states. We came to the assistance. This is Iran's policy. We don't pick and choose. We came to the assistance of the Kurds when ISIS was just about to take over Erbil. If you want, Mr. Barzani is here, you can ask him that immediately upon his request that Erbil was under the threat of being taken over by ISIS, Iran rushed to his assistance. Nobody else came to assist him. When Baghdad was being targeted by Daesh, we went to their assistance. When Syrian government was being targeted by Daesh, we went to their assistance. This is a consistent policy. People are making the wrong choices in supporting terrorism, believing mistakenly that they can have terrorists and their adversaries fight each other in a specific domain. They do not understand that in a globalized world, you cannot contain threats to one particular locality. You see that now Syria has become the training ground for terrorists, for suicide bombers who are creating havoc in Paris to New York to Los Angeles, everywhere.
Let me pick that up then. Why then has your ally and Bashar Assad's ally, Russia, failed to attack ISIS? Every intelligence report, every military report confirms that the majority of their strikes have been against the opponents of Bashar Assad and not against ISIS. And, well, yes, why? I mean, why is that?
You see, the operation in Palmyra was an operation against Daesh, although it was not strategically sound operation, but nevertheless, there was an operation against Daesh, took over the city. There were operations elsewhere against Daesh.
And they came storming back.
There are operations because it was not a strategically sound operation. But the point
was Russia
was
strategically going after ISIS? All intelligence in Europe, NATO, and elsewhere says not.
Well, unfortunately, Europe, NATO, and elsewhere have not done much of a job in fighting ISIS. Those who have prevented ISIS from taking territory in Iraq are not NATO and Europeans and the United States. It was Iran who came to the assistance of the Iraqi forces. It was the Iraqi forces who were able to defeat Daesh in Iraq with assistance coming from Iran, not with assistance coming from elsewhere. And it will continue. We have a very serious policy. We believe that everybody should come together to fight these terrorist organizations. And we believe that is in the interest of everybody, and I'm insisting everybody, to come to fight them. Nobody should believe that they can gain, even on a short-term basis, from supporting these terrorist organizations. Unfortunately, as I said, because of short-sighted calculations, they have come to aid groups or countries or states, including Saddam Hussein, who have at the end of the day turned against them. You cannot find a moment in history where Iran supported either Daesh, Taliban, Al-Qaeda, or Al-Nusra. We have always sided on the right side against terrorists, against those who want to confront the people.
So 2 questions out of